all those guys up here right now, all of you guys in the red jackets, up here, grab a seat. And what we're going to do is I'm going to ask these guys a couple of questions, and then I'm going to open the mic to you guys, because I know that you guys are sitting there. They're all sitting where you guys are just recently. And if they can give you an idea of to where they went from here and how they got to where they're going to, some of you guys might catch in and sort of want to head off in the same direction. And well, we've got the guys go. We've got you a couple of mics up there, and I'll ask you a few questions. Then, of course, if you guys would like to ask questions, we've got a couple of microphones in the room that we can do that. And I'll tell you what we might do is we might start with you, Wayne, because you're down the end. Do us a favour. I want to know what your name is, where you live, and how long you've actually been doing these strategies that you're doing right now.
Okay, I'm Wayne. I live in Melbourne. I've been doing this with Rick for about three and a half years now. It's been good. I've gone full-time in the last 18 months to 2 years. So I'm doing this now full-time with my wife.
Alrighty. Chrissy.
Hi, my name's Christine. I'm from Geelong. I first met Rick in 2007. I've been doing this ever since then, and it's the only thing I do.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Dorothy. I'm from the Gold Coast, and I can't remember when I started with Rick, but it seems like a long time. But but the main thing is I love it and I'm doing it full time.
My name's Jason. I started in the Go Direct program 2 years ago with Rick. I'm actually a full-time farmer and still doing that most of the time. I'm employing these strategies to buy and sell farms, mainly.
Hi, I'm Sam. I've been doing this now with Rick for about a year and a half. I'm doing it full-time, and yeah, it's going well.
Hi everyone, my name's Chris. I'm from the Sunshine Coast in Queensland. I've been working with Rick Strategies for about 2.5 years now, and I could be full-time, but I'm not working full-time. I'm not playing the game full-time. I'm actually working a job presently, but only because I've set myself a goal. We'll get there.
Hello, my name is Rowan. I'm from Perth. I've been working with Rick's Strategies for 18 months. I do it full-time. I'm a single mum, so I can pick my kids up from school, and that's gold.
Hi, I'm James. I've been doing this for the same time as Sam. We were both in the same group, Go Direct. Been doing it for about a year and a half. Northwest of Sydney, and my wife and I run a business now full-time as of 10 a.m. yesterday.
Okay.
And I'm Ben, and I met Rick at the start of 2006, and I was full-time day one, because when I got home after meeting Rick, I got made redundant the next day. So I just never went back.
Okay, what I want to do is, you got made redundant. What I want to know is, of all those different strategies, what do you find is your favourite? Which one do you spend most of your time doing over and over again? And I'll ask you other guys as to how did you make the decision, or when did you make the decision to go from a part-time situation to a full-time, as well as what strategy you're using? Well, I know why, because you got made redundant. You had no choice.
It was no decision. It was a no-brainer, mate. Well, strategy-wise, look, I started off doing lease options, rent-to-buy. So I was in Adelaide when I started. And I decided to start with that because I found the concept was easy. As far as my head said, it went, well, I kind of rent it from this guy with a fixed purchase price and rent it out to that guy with another fixed purchase price, and I could get my head around that. And I wanted to make some money fast so I didn't get really skinny with no job. So I thought I'll start with what I felt was an easy strategy, and once I did that, I moved into doing a strategy we're going to cover off on Sunday, our deposit finance strategy, and I probably did almost nothing but that for 18 months, and until bank loans got harder to get, and I moved into instalment contracts when I moved to Melbourne.
James.
Beth and I tend to do instalment sales only because we feel as though the person who buys the house has a lot more security over it and gives us more upfront money, and yeah, that's my favourite.
Okay. Well, how did you, or what made the decision for you to go from a part-time or full-time, and how did you get your head around to make that decision?
I made that decision in April of this year, but finances weren't coming. But as soon as I heard Rick's strategies, I knew that's what I wanted to do, and my wife thankfully thought the same. So since April, I've been at a job that I haven't really enjoyed so much, and just trying to gear all our decision making until December. So that was the goal we made.
Okay. Rowan.
I started with sandwich lease options, and I will probably switch to instalment contracts soon, just to mix it up a bit. The time I decided to go full-time was when I realised that there was nothing else that I could be doing with my time that would bring me in the benefits of this. So it was a no-brainer. It became a no-brainer.
All right, Chrissy, what's your favourite strategy?
Started off with something I could get my head around easily, and that was sandwich leases, which you guys will cover tomorrow. And I've just started to switch things over to instalment contracts. So
All right. Okay.
easy to do.
Sam, now Sam, did you go full? You're part-time. Did you go full-time at first, or were you part-time for a while?
No, I was part-time for a little while, for a few months,
Yep.
until I left my job overseas.
Yeah.
I was living overseas and working in IT overseas for a number of years, and I decided to go full-time when we moved back to Australia.
Now, which strategy do you find your favourite strategy?
Lease options. I started with lease options at the start, and now it kind of doesn't really matter what strategy I use. It just depends on the situation that I'm in.
Yep.
Yeah, I started with lease options. I wanted to be able to buy a house for $1 and actually see if I could do it. That was the main incentive. I had no money to buy one with anyway.
Good incentive.
Yeah. So still do mainly lease options back to back, but I tend to mix it up a little bit more now. I'll start with a lease option. Sometimes that'll turn into a handyman special with a lease option. Sometimes it'll be a lease option with deposit finance out the other end. So just mix it around.
Okay. Dorothy. Dorothy, were you full-time when you sort of got into this, or were you doing something else?
Well, Rick, to answer that is when I first made a big profit on my doing the lease option. That's what I started off, and the light bulb went, and that didn't take long for me to make a decision to go full-time.
And is it mainly lease options now?
No, I'm now transferred over to instalment contracts and applying quite of the different variation according to the client that I deal with.
Okay. Chris?
Yeah, I started out doing joint ventures with second mortgage carryback, and on some of the deals we've thrown in a little bit of sweat equity at the front for a deposit, and we always sell on instalment contracts. I've only done one back-to-back lease option. So, and I've been in business for many years, and recently I've been, in the last decade or so, I've been working online, buying wholesale and selling retail. But basically I was putting in a lot of time for not a lot of money. And this business, actually, I put in not a lot of time and get a lot of money. So it just didn't make sense to keep going with that. I was putting in too many hours a day and not getting anywhere near the rewards I should be getting. So I switched, and this is all I do now.
I pretty much have done most of Rick's strategies like Chris. I've mixed and matched a lot of different things through the time I've done it. I'm mainly now focused on selling an instalment sale. In Victoria, it just makes more sense for me down in Victoria to do that. But I've tried everything. One piece of advice I could give you is, as Rick says earlier on, just pick a strategy and stay with it to start with. It slowed me down when I tried to do everything and try to learn everything. So just pick one, just stick with it, stay with it. The reason I decided to go full-time, my wife and I looked at what we were doing and decided that for our business to grow and go to the next level, it was the logical choice for us just to make this a full-time business. It gave us time together, and that was more important to us than what I was doing with work, even though I enjoyed what I was doing.
Well, tell me what you're doing now. Here's what I want to know from you guys. Look at these strategies that you employ now, what you do now. How has it changed the way you live your life and how your family lives their life compared to how it was before?
Before, I was in IT and working long, long hours. So I was away from my wife for many an hour. I decided to do this full time to be with her, and now we're working side by side. It's great having her there. I learn a lot of her, she learns a lot of me, and we're just always together and we have a lot of fun together. So it's definitely changed our life, made our marriage grow better.
For me, my husband works very long hours. He travels from Geelong to Melbourne for his job, and he does 5 days a week. He's gone from, I think, about 6 o'clock in the morning till about 8 o'clock at night. And he's a contractor, so if he takes time off work, he doesn't actually get paid. So he's limited himself in the last decade or so to about 2 weeks' worth of annual leave a year, and possibly maybe 6 or 8 public holidays. In the last 12 months alone, he was able to take a month off work in the middle of this year, and we paid for him and his father to go back over to Holland, which is their native country. Dad's on his own now. Mum passed away a couple of years ago. Dad's 82. Your dad would never have gone back if my husband hadn't taken him, and my husband would never have been able to take a month off work if we didn't have the money from this business. And we're also taking another 2 weeks holiday this Christmas, which is added to the normal 2 weeks that my husband takes. So it's changed my husband's life. It's given him 6 extra weeks off work just this year alone, and allowed him to enjoy a holiday overseas with his father. And he and I are going to New Zealand at Christmas time, so we'll enjoy that as well. And it impacts not just on our lives, but on the lives of the other people. You know, all the family, Dad's family in Holland are now Skyping him all the time. So he's got his own senior citizens club back to Holland on Skype. So, which is great. He loves it because he doesn't have any other sort of real contacts here in Australia. He's got a limited friendship circle. So he's always on Skype. We can never get him on the phone anymore.
After all that, that's good. Mine was like spending long hours working hard. I've always been in property, and prior to that I was doing lecturer work for universities. And the bottom line is I wasn't feeling that appreciation. And when my husband is the long hours and working hard, we hardly saw each other. And when we did see each other, we made appointments. And that was so true. And this year, after he's been seeing the differences in the monies that's been coming in, and he's been saying, okay, now it's your turn to pay me to go away on holidays. So, and I said, well, I think it's both our turn to pay ourselves to go away on holidays. So we both agreed to that. And now that I'm working full-time, he's actually now joining me in this whole business. So being a commercial builder to coming into this business, and has changed his mindset in the way of, even in his business, as he's been learning with me in this whole process of dealing with what we're doing. And in that short time frame, I was completely taken back to the, just his enthusiasm in learning, because when he's seen the checks coming in the bank account compared to what he was making, he wasn't happy. So now it's like, honey, I'm right there with you. So that's making a big difference in our life.
Okay.
It's made a difference to the way I run my farming business. We've actually doubled our enterprise size in under 2 years. It's not always a good thing, because when you can buy property for $1 and have control over it, it can tie up cash flow. So we have faced challenges from doing that, but to be able to double the size of enterprise in such a short time, it enabled me to get out of doing the farm work, which I do enjoy doing, but I'd rather sit in the office and make the decisions of what's being done, and I can actually work. We're working more on the business instead of me being in the business, and getting more focused on the direction that business is taking. So I'm just basically home all the time with my wife and kids, 2 little girls, and they're homeschooled, so it's all good fun. we're all there together. And I've, since November last year, I decided to go flying. I always wanted to fly, and now I'm 2/3 of the way to have my own private licence. So it's been exciting, and that's all generated out of the property, and that hasn't come from the farming enterprise. So the extra things that we're doing, has given us extra cash to go and do things, because cash has been very tight in farming. And our lifestyle was getting more and more restricted because of the hours I was working. But that is starting to change, and we also managed to win the trip that was on offer on the Go Direct program, and that gave us a beautiful holiday.
Great, and you'll find Jason's helicopter just out the front as you guys leave the scene. Thank you much for that. Sammy?
Yeah, I think for me it was more about spending quality time with my kids. We're blessed with 4 kids, and I really didn't spend a great deal of time with them when they were first born and growing up because of the work that I was in before, and we decided that it was more important to focus on watching the kids grow and going through the experience that they go through where they go to school and when they come home from school and what they do and all that. So this was the only way that I could see that could give me the freedom that I needed outside of the corporate world that I was tied to. So it's really helped me grow closer to my kids, really know them and understand them. My wife and I are much closer together now than we've ever been. So, yeah.
Okay, Chris, how does it change the way you're living your life?
I suppose from the perspective that being a baby boomer and I've always been in the looking zone, and I've been down a few dry gullies too along the way. So, but then again, some of those things have been successful too. So, but it never really gave me the opportunity to be able to create the income of choice, and I think that's the major difference, that we've got something here that we can create the income of choice, and I firmly believe that the closer you are to controlling the income that you create, the better off you'll be. And this is exactly the vehicle that's provided that. So it's enabled us to do a lot more things than we'd been previously confined to do due to jobs and all those sorts of things. So it's opened a lot of doors for us.
Rowan?
Before I started this, I had a childcare business, and anyone in small business knows how long the hours are and how tied you are to everything about the business. It's not a bad business, there's nothing wrong with it, but this blows the doors off it totally. I've got time to spend with my kids, I can choose my hours, I can cruise to the office, which is the room next door, at about 9, take the first phone call at 9:30. I'm really free to set my own life the way that I want it.
Alrighty. James?
Yeah, my wife and I have been through some tough stuff over the last 5 or 6 years, and we got to the point where we just didn't see our lives changing. My wife was very unwell, and we went down to Rick's course like you guys were about a year and a half ago, and I saw a glimmer of hope, and that has been this business. Now my wife can get up and do some volunteering work, which she's really passionate about, while selling houses. We can sponsor some charities in Thailand, which is close to our heart, of orphans, and our business supports that, and it gives us a lifestyle. And if we do have kids in the future, then we'll be able to bring them up with a constant presence of mother and father. And as a teacher, most of the problems I did see from students was because their fathers weren't present. My father wasn't present, so I want to address that. And because Rick and Jane have got this course that you've seen, that's allowed us to do that. And we're both, from Beth and I, we're very thankful.
Thanks, James. Benny, how's this program changed the way you live your life?
Well, I used to see lots of darkness, and what I mean is physical darkness, because I'd get up in the morning and it was dark, and I'd drive to work in the dark, and then I'd drive home in the dark. So I had to have a torch all the time just to sort of recognise the family. But no, quite seriously, I'd get home in the dark and I'd kind of walk up the stairs and say goodnight to the kids and go and have dinner on my own. So I got a little bit lonely at home after a while and sort of started questioning the sort of society I was living in. I wasn't very happy, so I was a pretty unhappy person. I used to get up rather early and I'd walk my dogs and I'd see kids getting dropped off at a childcare centre at like 6 o'clock in the morning, and I'd recognise the same cars picking them up like at 6 o'clock at night. And I kind of had this vision of myself going, wow, that's where my kids will go if I don't sort of pull my finger out and do something. So for me anyway, what actually really drummed in, I suppose, the mindset from my childhood to where my kids are was when a couple of years ago, my oldest son came and stayed at a friend's place with me, and we had to share a queen-size bed, which is funny for an 8-year-old kid and share a bed with his dad. But anyway, we were lying there and we heard my friend at 6 o'clock with this squeaky door open the door and bang, and this car start, and he's gone, Dad, what was that? I said, oh, that's Brendan going to work. And he's gone, but it's 6 o'clock. I said, yeah, well, he's gone, why would you want to do that? And it really sunk in that like I'd changed so much, a full circle, by doing this, and the opportunity to spend that much more time with the kids that they hadn't experienced, seeing some other guy have to get up at 6 o'clock and go to work. And that's when I sort of thought, wow, it really sunk in, you know, the opportunity that's present. So that's what's changed for me, Rick.
Okay, I want to ask you guys one question, and then I'll invite you guys. These guys are pretty much an open book. If you've got any questions you'd like to ask these guys about how they live their life or run their business, they're quite happy to share with you. If anybody has a question you'd like to ask these guys, please feel free to jump up on the microphone and just ask them. They'll just tell you how it is. What I'd like to know is, all of you guys were sitting down here probably 18 months, a couple of years ago. What is one thing that you know now that you wish you knew when you were sitting down there, 2 years, 3 years ago? What's the one bit of advice that you wish you knew then that you know now? Wayne. Okay, well, I'll tell you, start down here, because we've got a microphone down here. Benny.
I probably, because I was so enthusiastic and excited, I would talk myself into the deal, and then I'd see them reciprocating, ready to do the deal and all happy, and then I'd be that excited, I'd keep going blah, 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 and then they'd pull the pen back and they just weren't quite sure. So I'd talk myself into the deal and out of the deal all in the one conversation, and now I've learnt to say a lot less. And I do more nodding than talking now.
Yeah, I used to do that because I used to talk about how much you know.
Yeah.
You'll come out of here after 3 days, you've learned all these strategies, then the first person you meet, you go, hey, let me tell you what I know. You open their head and you go, blah, and you drop 3 days, the head goes, pop! And you go, oh, I think I told them too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as you start getting skinny and hungry, you think, I'm just not going to talk as much.
Talk as little, yeah. James.
This business is not about property. It's about solving problems. And at the start, I was focused on the strategies and getting the figures right, because that's the kind of personality I have. But now I walk in there, I ask what the problem is, and I try and solve it. And that has brought so much more confidence and success than me focusing on the details. We've got people like Tony up the back there that sorts that out for you. So.
Yeah, just more on that. Make it about them. If it's not about them, there's no transaction. The bottom line is you're dealing with people and people's lives, so it's important that you honour that, and the transactions sort of miraculously come together from that.
I think for me, the more you can help other people achieve what they want to achieve, the more you'll help yourself.
The one bit of information that you wish you knew then that you know now.
Taking action, just doing it, applying it. Back then I thought it was, wow, there's just so much. I came away after 3 days thinking, how do I do this? Where do I start? But getting out there and doing it and just following everything that you said to a T worked. It just worked. The less I said, the more results I got.
Yeah, write this down in your words at work, guys. The less you say, the more you make. It's funny business, this one.
I think the most important thing is you need to take action, but you need to persist in that action and totally believe in the system. When you start questioning whether the paperwork's right or whether the system works, you've got out of the right mindset. The system works. It's worked for us, guys. I'm a farmer. Look, you know, anybody can make this work if I can, where I came from, with my education. Honestly, it's worked the system works, believe in it. As soon as you believe in that system, it'll give you confidence to go out and do it. And it's action, constant action, that takes you from just thinking about it to the money. And when you get to the money, you go, well, it does work, and your belief goes up again.
After you've sat down with a few people along your training with the training wheels, you actually start to learn to shut up. And had I known that at the beginning, I probably would have done a lot better at the beginning. But now that I've learned, I've changed that concept, and the value of helping the people and the income that comes from that has more than gone up that way. So what I've learned, shut, ask questions, and solve their problems. Then we all move forward.
Chris?
Yeah, similar to what a lot of the other guys have said, I used to try to tell people how the strategies could work and give them the details of what the strategy was and how we could do this and that and the other thing and put it all together. And a lot of the time I just boggled their brains and they just didn't understand what was going on. So I learnt not to give them information but to ask them for information. So I then knew what their problem was and I could then apply what I knew to help solve their problem.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say something entirely different to everybody else. Have you ever seen a baby learn to walk? First of all, it kicks and then it sort of crawls a bit, then it starts to stand up and it wobbles around a bit. Don't try and master everything at once. Take one skill, do lots of it, master it, and then move on to the next one. It's the fastest way to learn. When I started this, I thought, I'll try everything and I'll sit in there, and if it was that way, I'll try that one and then I'll try this one. But I never quite got one bedded down, so it slowed me down. So take one thing, one strategy that you feel comfortable with, and just apply it and apply it and apply it and apply it, and just do it lots and lots of times until you get it bedded down.
Okay. People are sitting out here going, have you guys ever made a mistake? Tell us about one learning experience that you've had, Wayne, as you've gone along the road.
Okay, is not keeping control of the process all the way through. I had a deal which I was negotiating with this couple. She was a judge in Victoria, and he was looking after the kids at home. They were selling their mother's house. So I was negotiating this all the way through, had the price down, had everything agreed, and we thought we had a deal, and then it went to their solicitor, and their solicitor sort of said, this can't be done, this isn't legal. Didn't tell them that, told me that, and quietly killed the deal with the with my vendors, with the sellers I was working with. So I've now learnt to keep things in control, be there with that solicitor when he was questioning those things, so I could be there and, you know, sort of talk him through what I was trying to do and sort of say, okay, well, I'm just trying to do this, could you help me out? So keep control of it all the way through. Okay.
Chris?
My mistake's kind of a little strange because it actually made me some money, but it was something that I would never do again, and my mistake was to do a renovation. We actually controlled the time frame really well. We only were actually working on the reno for 16 weeks. We controlled the budget really well. We only invested about $30,000 of our own money. But we had 16 weeks worth of hard work. My husband and son both worked in Melbourne at the time, and they had to sacrifice 16 weekends. And after we'd finished the renovation process, after working hard, it took us another 3 months to sell it through a real estate agent. And at the end of the day, we didn't make any more money than if we had pushed paper from a seller to a buyer. So we wasted a good 7 or 8 months and made the same amount of money we would have done on pushing paper on one deal. So I'm not going to do any more renos, even though we made some money from it.
Okay.
Mine is similar to what Wayne had here. Is not controlling the deal with the solicitors that I thought was representing me, but end up representing the client who mistakenly. What happened was these two solicitors, both the same surname, but not necessarily in the same office. So this client of ours rang my solicitor and sort of just went off her head because I made a mistake of simply not explaining one simple process to her. So that made me realise that everything I have to do with someone, with my clients, is I will sit down with them and explain the process from, this is the buy by the way, from step one, and close the gate after each section to make sure that they fully understand what I was doing for them. So, but still made money.
Okay, I think this is about the only thing I know that if you get it wrong, you don't lose money, you just make less profit. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's the same sort of theme as what we've been hearing. It was when I got out of the system and thought I could go ahead and do something, and you lose control of the process if you don't follow a pattern and actually, as we've heard, close the gate. In other words, finish off on one thing before you try and agree on something else or move to the next part of it. And the bigger the transaction you're trying to bring together, or the more money is in it, you get emotionally involved. And as you do that, as the negotiator, you're losing control of the situation because you've put some emotion in it. So you sort of got to just back off from maybe the dollar figure. Don't worry about the dollars that are in it, and just work the process and make sure as soon as you get to a process where it seems to be going wrong, you back up and close the gates, and just make sure you keep that process travelling forward so everyone's moving forward together. And the biggest mistake I made was probably on the second deal. It seemed great, but it's lawyers and accountants, unfortunately, that kill deals if you're not with the seller in front of their lawyer or accountant. And that's the only way you can stay in control of the process. If you give them the paperwork and send them off, you've lost control of it. You don't know the conversation that will go on between them. You need to set it up in a way that even if there's an agent, there's an accountant, whatever it is, they all need to be in the room so the negotiation can move forward and you get agreements from every party. Otherwise, you've got to back up and start again. And recently, I had another deal go wrong just like that. We've got a real estate agent, the seller, everyone was moving forward, and they said, well, we need to take this to our accountant. I came back with a no. So now I'm back to negotiating and trying to go back in the door.
All right.
I think I did everything wrong at the start. I mean, absolutely everything. I mean, taking calls, talking to sellers, talking to buyers, talking to agents, mismanaging paperwork, getting the solicitors offside.
So you did your best to screw up the whole system?
You know, in the end, it just came down to that was the only way I could learn. Yeah. So I just kind of accepted mentally that the more mistakes I made, then I stood a chance, maybe, at some point in time, of not being the idiot that I was. So...
Okay.
I'm a bit like Sam in that I stuffed up everything. I thought I had to have everything right and everything, all the ducks lined up before you could move ahead. And I realised that every time I did that, the deals fell apart every single time. So I realised I had to be dumb like a fox. Just the less I cared, the more it worked. And that sounds really crazy, but the less you want it to come together, the easier it comes together, because they see you as being someone who it doesn't really matter to them either way whether it's going to work or whether it doesn't, because the longer you're involved in this, the more you realise that there are more people out there than you can count who need your help. So be so phlegmatic and relaxed about it. Don't push too hard. The more you push, the less deals you're going to make.
Okay, when you get to deal stage, write everything down. Make sure you get bullet points. It doesn't have to be a hard conversation. It doesn't have to be a confronting conversation, but the conversations need to take place. And make sure that you get advice when you think you need it. If you're feel like you're out of your depth, go and speak to someone that's a mentor or someone that you can trust, and keep in the loop. This is the start of your education. There's a lot more to go. There's a lot more to learn.
I'm a bit like Sam, but on our second deal, we managed to sell a property without buying it. Pretty embarrassing. It's supposed to happen on the same day, but it was a consequence of not taking control of the transaction from start to finish. And yeah, we sold the house to a guy, moved in, and then 2 days later there was an eviction notice, and the buyer we hadn't done our due diligence on our buyer. So if I can do that and still not lose any money, my guess is you can do the same. You can do much better than that.
Benny?
For me, it was about making the rules and sticking to your own rules. And what I mean by that is you're going to meet some pretty crazy sellers out there. And what's going to happen is they're all going to have their own emotional scenarios about why they're in the situation they're in. And what's really easy to forget sometimes is that they're the problem and you're the solution. And what can happen is you can go into some houses that you might see a lot of stress and anxiety inside the house, and you might see children as well who you think, wow, I wouldn't kind of care for my kids that way, and it can get quite emotional and heart-wrenching. You think, wow, I wouldn't let my kids do that. And sometimes you can forget that you're the solution, and if you get yourself crossed over this line into being part of the problem with them, they'll actually take advantage of you. And what will actually happen, I'll give you an example of that, is quite often you'll actually go into help mode rather than a focused business mode. And what happens is you start helping them out, and then one day you'll get the call like I used to, and I would have done all this work negotiating with their loan and all this, and I'll come back and say, oh, yeah, look, we don't want to do it anymore. Uncle Pete's lending us 12 grand to fix the loan, so thanks anyway, buddy, and that'll kind of be it. And that's simply just by forgetting that it's a business transaction and you're not a welfare agent, you're a business transaction. The byproduct is that you've got a powerful system that can help a lot of people out of situations. So what you've got to do is stay really logical, acknowledge that you're the solution, they're the problem, and you're here to help, and not actually cross the line into being part of the problem, because your deals just won't move forward. You'll become all fuzzy, and you'll be trying to help like a really good Samaritan, which is very noble, don't get me wrong, but you're not going to make any money, and you'll get walked all over in the marketplace. So for me, it was making the rules that I just don't do that, and I acknowledge what's going on. I might even, console them a little bit, but I stay very clear that I'm the solution, they're the problem, and these are the rules of making things work.
All right, really quickly, unless you guys have any questions. Yes, ma'am. What's your question?
So are you saying it's best not to get emotionally involved?
Yes.
Yeah.
Be empathetic and sympathetic,
Yep.
but don't actually cross the line where you actually cross the line to being a friend as such. They've got to respect that you're a professional person.
One of the problems I have with my students, and it's all about you've got to be a solution to the problem, not transferring the problem from them to you. One of the biggest problems I have with my students is they put themselves in a situation where somebody's life is a mess, and the next minute the student is making payments on the seller's mortgage and they've got no paperwork to do that. Does that make sense? And the students ring me up and go, look, I paid $20,000 on their mortgage because I felt sorry for them, and now they act like they don't know me anymore. I'm like, well, yeah, people are like that. So there's some systems and processes, and you just got to keep logical, because you've got to recognise that you didn't create the problem. You're there to try to solve it if you can. You can, sometimes you can't. But, yes, sir, what's your question?
How did you manage the transition, most of you with full-time jobs, and I've got one too, between the gap from 0 transactions to getting several transactions a quarter and things going? And when was the point you realised at which this was actually going to be a viable business for you?
I realised this would be a viable business for me when I saw the people up here were making it a success. So I thought, they can do it, I can do it. I thought, this is a business that I can make work. I've just got to put my put my work into it, make it work for me. I didn't care how long it was going to take me, what it needed to take, I was going to do it. I started off the business, put ads out there, talked to people on the phone until something finally happened and I had a deal together, and it's like, wow, okay, that's my first one. The second one was a little easier and just built up from there. So,
Now, you were doing IT at the time?
yes,
So you had a full-time job?
I had a
Because
full-time
I totally
job.
understand the question. With men, eventually, women will multitask better than a man does. Men are great. You point us in one position and focus us, we go that way. Try to make us go in 2 or 3 ways, and for guys, it's harder. Women can go blah, 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 blah. Put that down! We think, how did they do that? Do you know what I mean? And guys have to go beep, 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 child, ding, put that down. So I totally understand where you're coming from. I know what you mean. And in actual fact, because of that, I'm going to ask you guys next, because you guys, I know guys will struggle with this harder. How did you make the? I know you got dumped in the deep end. How did you make that do that?
I had a look at my time, and teaching took up a lot of it. So I made sure that 3 times a week I did 2 or 3 hours, and that would be calling or researching. And on Saturday was our real estate day, and I got that from another guy in our course called Tim Hart, and he said, just you've got to have persistent action, and you've got to do it continuously. And I was sceptical, and we put our own house up for sale, and that sold within 8 days of being in the course. So I thought, okay, it must work.
And what is that tent like?
All we did was put it out. Yeah, the tent was a great tent.
Yeah.
Sign looked better than the tent. We just put a sign outside, and that was all we did. And the power of the signs. So can I encourage you? It works. It works really well. Just devote some time to it.
Now, what you can do for rehearsal, just to get going, try to sell your friend's house when they're on holidays. Just put the sign out the front, get people to drive by, get all the facts, and maybe you've got a deal for them when they get back. Say, hey, good news. Guess how much I got for your house? Okay, Chris.
To me, I thought one income stream is ridiculous, and I came along to this function and I saw a light, and I thought I saw a panel sitting up the front exactly as we are at this point, and realised that they were in exactly the same situation I was 18 months earlier, and I thought, man, they just proved to me that, and I felt this was the most powerful thing for me for the whole weekend, seeing guys sitting up here like this saying that they could do it too, and here I am saying exactly the same thing. So, I mean, if we can do that for you and make you realise that that light can become a burning ember and absolutely glow and, do all you want it to do, that was it for me. And so I just realised that it was worth the time to put into it. So, never really became a thing about juggling time. It was a commitment, and ultimately became the strongest of the two. Whether it work was in automatic mode, and because I was in automatic mode, I was able to plug into all the stuff to feed me of what I could do to actually create something that would work beyond that and leave that behind. Well, that's where it's headed.
Sir, which question?
This might sound a bit of a dumb question. Have you actually worked together in a deal where you haven't felt confident and you've drawn upon the strength of somebody else that may have went through the boot camp when you did, or the mentoring program, or spoken to Rick and it's helped you?
We call that networking, and definitely it does help. Yeah, and we're still using that. So some of us is when we're in different states, is rather than, like, sometimes we get these people call us out of nowhere and say, I've got this property over there and can you help me? And I'm going, where's over there? And then they'll say, Western Australia. And I go, I'm on Gold Coast. But I don't say no to that. What I do is take their contact details and then I pass it on to the other team members who are in that state.
I teamed up with a chap who was in the same group that I was in. He'd actually had the experience of buying and selling a couple of properties Rick's way before he came to the session that I was in, and he and I actually just teamed up in partnership, and he worked with the seller and I worked with the buyer, and it actually gave me a chance to sort of get my feet wet and get involved as part of a team with someone who actually had a bit more experience than I did to start with. but he was in the same boot camp that I was in.
Thank you.
A lot of people, what you'll do is, with Jane and I, when we started, I used to always buy the houses. Jane used to always sell them. You'll find that we'll have a function tomorrow night, and when you'll find that a lot of the people in this room, when they get together, you'll find that it's who you know, and you'll get someone buys, someone sells. I know that when I get calls now, I'll very rarely do a transaction. What I'll do is I'll call one of the students where the house is and say, how much will you charge me to buy it for me? Because I haven't got time to organise it. They'll buy it. I just did with the other one, and then just one recently actually. And then I'll call, it was a house in Deception Bay. It's in Queensland. And it was funny because I called one of my students and I said, can you sell it? He said, yeah, I charge 14 grand. I said, you're charging me 14 grand to sell a bloody house. I said, how long is it going to take you to sell it? He said, an hour. And I said, you're going to charge me 14 grand. He said, it's your fault. You should have taught me so well. I thought, bastard. I was expecting to say 5 grand. And he goes, you know, I'm good. So he got a $24,000 upfront fee. He kept 14, gave me 10. And the point was I didn't go anywhere. Made that phone call, made 10. Do you know what I'm saying? But it's just by knowing the other students in the network, you know. And quite often, as one of the people said to me, a lot of us might do one bit. So some of these guys just might buy properties all day long and they've just got no interest to sell them, so they'll give it to somebody else who wants to sell them.